Hey guys, another quick and dirty tutorial. This time we're just going to look at some sound design tips based around the sine wave and just quite how much you can do with just that. Let's get into it.
Número uno.
I already have a sine wave loaded up. This is from the factory folder. All we're going to do is we're going to loop it and we're going to just adjust the decay a little bit shorter, and we're going to play it an octave down on the keyboard. And straight away you can hear that with just that you've already got a really nice sub bass.
Número dos.
Tip number 2, drown it in reverb and you get instant ambient if you play it in the higher register. I've got my reverb set up to be quite large and spacious, so let's have a listen to that.
Número tres.
Now, in most cases, when you halve the length of the wave, you get an extra octave.
Número cuatro.
If we start to move the start point, we start to get different shapes and different timbres. Essentially, we've started off with a sine wave and we're now working with something that looks more like a rounded sawtooth wave.
Número cinco.
From here we can go to the LFO page. We're going to select the start as a destination, and we're not really going to do anything else. We're going to leave it on free, and we're just going to turn the depth up and see or hear what happens. You should be able to hear it. I'd certainly suggest you're wearing headphones, and you're going to get this kind of nice subtle movement. What we're doing is we're modulating the start and essentially faking the sound of pulse width modulation. You get that really thick, kind of almost analog sound. Now you're going to hear there's some little artifacts and little clicks. You can mitigate that mostly by playing around with the depth and the start points, and by just taking off some of that top end.
Número seis.
Next, let's have a look at creating a vibrato effect. We're going to select the tune here and we're going to give it just a tiny bit of depth, otherwise it becomes overwhelming, the effect. And let's have a listen. See, that's too much. I kind of like it underneath. No more than kind of 0.1 or 0.9, that range. Let's open up the filter so you can hear it a little better. And it just makes a static waveform just so much more interesting to listen to.
Número siete.
Next we're going to look at tremolo. So this is modulating the level. You can select the sample level. I choose the amp volume, but the effect is the same. The thing with tremolo, I think it sounds much nicer when it's kind of beating at the same tempo as the track. So let's have a listen to that. We're going to select the trigger mode for this so that you have control of the start of the wave. And that's a really nice tremolo effect. Let's kind of take that filter down. And what you can do is you can give it a bunch of fades so that it starts to come in gradually.
Número 8.
Another fun destination to modulate is the overdrive. Let's get rid of that fade. Let's put it back on free. Let's have a listen. Let's crank up the overdrive and giving a little bit less depth. And again, you get that really nice kind of movement, that pulsing effect.
Número 9.
Now let's go back to the sine wave. Let's get rid of our filter settings and everything else, and let's just listen to the pure sine wave again. Now I want to talk about the bit reduction and just how many different tones you can get as you scroll through. Just have a listen. Now what is essentially happening is you're turning this smooth sine wave more and more into like a jagged edged square until at the end, at this kind of end of the parameter, you have essentially a square wave, and that's what you're listening to.
Número 10.
From here, we can make a nice bass by simply pulling back the filter, adjusting the decay for the envelope, and just start to bring that in. Let's shorten the decay on the release or the decay, yes, on the amp page. And you get a really nice kind of rounded square house bass. And if we if we play it in the higher registers, you get these lovely plucks, and all we need to do is add a bunch of reverb. I love these plucky sounds.
Número 11.
Now let's look at making a pad sound. So the obvious thing to reach for is the attack for the amp, which is, yeah, fair enough. But I think to really give it that much more character and flavour is to reach for the filter and use the envelope to really emphasise that sweep up. And we're going to give it a negative depth, so we're going to go from low to high, and the decay parameter is going to dictate how quickly or slowly that happens. So the longer, it's going to open up slower, faster, it's going to up quicker. Let's make it longer, longer still. Let's play it higher up in the registers and a bunch of reverb. That sounds super nice. And just the last word is pay attention to the release portion of the envelope as well. Have a listen to how that would affect what happens when you release the key. You can hear with this short setting. As soon as I let go of the key, the filter opens up, but the slower, the longer I put it, the slower that happens. In most cases, the release portion on the envelope is going to be somewhere near to what the decay is. And for the final touch, let's add a bit of movement to that way. We're going to give it a little bit of vibrato.